My name is Bianca Moore. I'm 28 years old, and last Mother's Day, my mother sent me a bill for $347,000 with the subject line, "The Cost of Raising a Disappointment," CCing all 48 relatives in our sprawling family from California to Maine. And she thought it would crush me, make me cry, make me apologize, make me shrink into the corner I had been trained to occupy. But instead, I replied with a single photo, and by the next morning, 47 had blocked her, leaving only my grandmother, who did something far more significant. And as I recall the events of that morning, the story begins years earlier in the small 600-square-foot apartment in Somerville I've paid for since I was 22, where Marcus, my boyfriend of 2 years, often asks why I still attend family gatherings, why I answer calls, why I let my mother's constant comparisons to my sister Vicki slide. And I have no good answer, except that perhaps a small part of me hoped that if I tried harder, stayed quieter, caused less trouble, she'd finally see me as she sees Vicki. Though growing up, Vicki, 3 years older, received lavish praise, gifts, and a life paved with advantage, while I was questioned, criticized, and expected to perform without acknowledgement. And even when I graduated magna cum laude from Boston University in 2019 with a finance degree, my mother missed the ceremony for a migraine. Yet a week later, she flew to New York for Vicki's award party, posting 12 photos on Facebook praising her brilliant lawyer daughter, while my achievement went unnoticed. And for years, I believed my father's quiet reassurances that my mother simply had a harder time expressing herself. Until 3 years ago, when I began auditing the numbers, tracing every dollar, every transaction, and realized my college fund, supposedly equal to Vicki's $89,000, had been withdrawn in full in 2016 by my mother into her personal account, leaving me $67,000 in student loans. And over the years, she claimed me as a dependent on her taxes, generating $32,000 in illicit benefits, opened credit cards in my name that maxed out to $47,000, forced me into debt and humiliation while she flaunted luxury purchases and orchestrated a narrative painting me as a disappointment. And last Mother's Day, when she announced a family reunion at Grandma Eleanor's farmhouse in Connecticut, 48 people total, I felt a premonition of entrapment, spending 4 hours before everyone arrived preparing food, cleaning, setting the table, only to have Vicki arrive at 11:30 in silk and designer shoes, compliment my work without noticing me, and my mother positioning me at the back for the family photo, leaving me out of the spotlight. And then my grandmother, Eleanor, squeezed my elbow and whispered, "Hold your ground." And at lunch, after the speeches praising mothers and Vicki's brilliance, my mother rose to read the bill aloud, detailing every dollar I supposedly cost her over 28 years. The framed spreadsheet hung above the fireplace. And in the silence, I retrieved my folder named Insurance, containing 3 files of documented proof of her lies, fraud, and abuse, opening them one by one, revealing my stolen college fund, the credit card fraud, the tax benefits she illicitly claimed, and confronting Vicki, whose complicity became evident as she admitted taking delivery of packages in my name, the realization hitting the relatives like a storm, and the tension breaking further when I revealed the screenshot I had held for 3 years, a text message from Mom to Vicki admitting I wasn't Richard Moore's biological child, which reframed every slight, every humiliation, every comparison as a projection of her fear and guilt, leaving the room in stunned silence. My father leaving the house, unable to face her. My grandmother remaining calm, guiding me through the chaos, showing support and clarity. And the fallout in the family group chat, 47 relatives blocking Mom, leaving her isolated, while Eleanor had acted differently, not blocking her but changing her will, reducing Mom's share of her estate from 35% to 5%, increasing mine from 10% to 30%, and providing me with a $50,000 check intended for graduation 6 years earlier, words of encouragement written on a letter. And in the weeks following, my credit score repaired, student loans reduced, Marcus and I moved to a larger apartment in Cambridge, Dad visiting and bonding over small, quiet moments, Sunday dinners becoming our own ritual. Then a letter from a man named Michael arriving, claiming to be my biological father, offering connection without pressure, and I responded acknowledging his existence but requesting time, while Mom attempted to confront me at my workplace, and I calmly reiterated my boundaries, that her past crimes and abuses made her ineligible for reconciliation without accountability. And as I stood firm, I realized the truth of my own empowerment, having spent 28 years having my identity dictated by a woman who chose deceit over honesty. And yet, through all of this, my grandmother had quietly ensured justice, not out of malice, but fairness, giving me security, affirmation, and recognition. And in that one moment, I understood the magnitude of patience, evidence, and resolve, that confronting decades of abuse requires preparation, proof, and courage, and that the people who truly matter, those who respect and support you, become evident when chaos descends, while those invested in illusion, favoritism, and manipulation reveal themselves without effort. And as I reflected on all of it, from the early years of unequal treatment, the theft of funds, the identity manipulation, to the Mother's Day spectacle, to the aftermath of cleared debts, supportive relatives, a reconciled father, the presence of Marcus, and the potential for a new father in Michael, I recognized that life is not defined solely by the family into which you are born, but by the boundaries you enforce, the truths you document, the courage you summon, and the integrity you maintain in the face of betrayal.
And as the weeks passed, the chaos settled into new rhythms, my apartment filled with warmth, laughter, and quiet certainty, the phone buzzing with apologies and support from those who had been blinded by lies. The email that once threatened humiliation, now a symbol of vindication and clarity. Grandma Eleanor's deliberate, measured intervention reshaping the power dynamics. Mom left isolated and accountable for her decades of abuse and theft. Vicki humbled and reflective. My father reaffirmed as a loving presence despite biology. And the future open. A letter from Michael offering the possibility of knowledge without obligation. All these threads weaving into a tapestry of survival, justice, and reclamation, teaching me that identity, worth, and love cannot be dictated by deceitful hands, and that the numbers, my meticulous documentation, the bank statements, credit card records, tax filings, don't lie, unlike the people who wield them to control, shame, or manipulate. And in that realization lies freedom, the capacity to rebuild, to trust selectively, to define family on one's own terms. And as I stand in my own space, with Marcus, with my father present in choice, with Grandma Eleanor's support, I feel the weight of decades lifted, replaced with the clarity that boundaries are sacred, that evidence is power, that silence can be preparation for justice, that exposure is not vengeance but truth-telling, and that one's life, though shaped by others' decisions, can ultimately be reclaimed through courage, awareness, and unwavering adherence to reality. A lesson paid for in decades of subtle oppression, emotional manipulation, financial exploitation, and hidden truths, yet one that, when faced squarely, allows the heart to recover, the mind to rest, and the future to be approached with deliberate choice, a recognition that people may never change, that love may be conditional or absent, but personal integrity, evidence-based accountability, and the deliberate enforcement of boundaries remain unassailable, that one can acknowledge past trauma, confront perpetrators, protect oneself, and still hold space for connection where trust is authentic and earned. And as I reflect on the journey, the tears shed, the victories earned in silence, the battles fought on paper and in heart, the reconciliation with the father who raised me, the cautious understanding with Vicki, the clarity and support from Grandma Eleanor, the distance maintained from a mother who betrayed trust in every form possible, I understand that empowerment is not instantaneous, that justice is not revenge, that closure may be partial, and that life, in all its messy human complexity, can be rebuilt with intentionality, patience, evidence, courage, and love chosen freely, that I am no longer a disappointment, no longer a shadow of someone else's expectations, no longer subject to manipulation, and that through careful calculation, meticulous documentation, and unwavering self-respect, I have claimed a life defined not by the deceit, favoritism, and cruelty of my mother, but by the clarity of truth, the steadfastness of support, and the freedom of autonomy. A journey spanning 28 years compressed into a single day of revelation that rippled outward, permanently altering relationships, inheritance, trust, and the understanding of what it means to be a daughter, a sister, a partner, a person who finally, fully sees herself as worthy, respected, and autonomous. And as I close my eyes each night, the echoes of past pain linger not as chains, but as lessons. Reminders that boundaries are sacred, numbers speak truth, courage is non-negotiable, and that the people who truly matter will support you, even as those who do not are revealed, and that in the end, survival is not enough, reclamation is the true measure. A lesson learned in silence, observation, calculation, and finally, courageous confrontation, leaving me standing firmly in my own identity, unashamed, undiminished, unbound, a daughter not of disappointment, but of truth, strength, and resilience.